Hello, hello. Welcome to Budz Radio. I'm your host, Rye. It's been a long time since we last connected, and we will get into that shortly. I first want to introduce the co-host and MC of today's episode, Mike Major from Green Lane Communication. Mike, thanks for joining me back here at Budz Radio after a 4-year gap.
Man, I'm pumped to be here, and I'm honored that you decided to bring me on to kind of get this rolling again. So I'm excited to jump in because I sure as heck have a lot of questions for you. I want to know what's been happening with Buds and everything in between. I I want to know. So let's dive right into it. Unless you have some other things that you want to cover, any kind of housekeeping that you needed to get out the way, but I want to jump right into this thing, man.
Sure. Before we get started, those that have been following us since I think we launched in 2019, we've gone through a lot of transitions. And in 2022, we opened our first adult use store. And we will get into what life has been like since then. But the reason that there hasn't been any Weed Buds or now Buds radio episodes is I just had to put my head down and grind and get some great stories that I can share with you all now. But Mike, I know you've got the questions. You're the hard hitting journalist. So jump right in and let's get started and see where this conversation takes us today.
Yeah, so you sort of touched on it a little bit, but I want to dig a little bit deeper if you don't mind. Just pulling back the curtain here. You said that you had to just kind of put your head down, focus on things for the last couple of years, but for those who are just getting caught up to speed, Weed Buds Radio has been inactive for give or take about 4 years now, like you said. Now, I know you said you stepped away because you had to focus, put your head down, but what exactly were you focused on? What happened during that time, and why would you say now is the right time to bring it back? Or what made you say, you know what, I think now is when we need to kick this thing back into high gear?
First, the community. The community's been asking me for 2 or 3 years to bring episodes back, even if it's, bi-weekly or a couple months. Um, Everyone's asking for an update. So we wanted to, but we've been so busy. And we'll get into what happened, but the to kind of start, I went bankrupt, and that really set me back big time. So I had no money to start an adult use store, but I had to. I knew I had studied the industry. I knew I was a good retailer, and I knew that I could provide a business model that this industry really wasn't providing. And we created Budz Emporium. I had a small loan from my parents who believed in what we were doing. Neither one of them are really big Budz products users, but I pitched my vision. I told them what I wanted to provide and where I wanted to provide it, and they took a risk. And some other members of my family were kind of behind me and supportive, and I needed to do it, and so I bootstrapped. Our opening inventory order was like $4,000. I think we had two strains on the shelf, and now we have 40. We had a pack of gummies. Now we have private label Budz gummies. It's been a wild ride. And when we first started, I'll tell you what a week looked like. We were open Wednesday through Sunday. I worked by myself. I stayed here in the warehouse 24/7. And Mondays, I would have to do my pickups. I would go to the southern part of the state. I would weave the state, and I would drive all the way back to Medway. From the southern tip of Maine to Medway is about 4 hours. But when you add all the weaving I had to do, I would leave in the morning, 4 a.m., get down there by the time the first place opens, and I'd get home by about 8 p.m. and all the inventory had to be checked in by midnight. So that's Monday. So then Tuesday, you actually have to do something with that inventory, put it where it needs to go. Like you don't have time Monday night. So you're dealing with your inventory. You're dealing with your marketing, doing the radio ads, doing the newspaper ads, um, everything operational, taxes, P&Ls, electric bill, everything that needs to get done got done on Tuesday because Wednesday through Sunday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., I was a physical salesperson. I was the bud tender. And that was tough. And it took a significant amount of time to really grow. And it was, I think, about 4 months, 3 months before we hired our first employee. And after that, once I had time to get outside of just being a salesperson, we were able to do things that were finesse and grow the business. So I really I had to put my head down. There was no time to tell the stories of what we were going through. We were going through it, and it's a competitive industry. There was a lot of challenges, a lot of compliance. I was new to that. Didn't have a big team at the time like I do now. But why are we bringing Budz Radio back, or at least doing a few episodes to tell you where we are? Well, Budz has expanded significantly. It's more than a dispensary, it's more than a podcast, it's a community. We now have Budz Cafe in our shop here in Medway.
which I definitely
We're in
want
the
to get into
middle.
in a little bit.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of an acquisition for a second location, Bud's location, where we'll do the same model. This most recent month, we opened Budz Bistro. And so we really looked at Bud's, and we were lucky enough to acquire the building that Medway Bud's is in. We looked at like what are people doing, how are people generating more revenue as sales shrink. And so the Starbucks and Target model has always really impressed me. You walk in, get a Starbucks, go do your shopping. Brilliant. So that's where the cafe came from. And then there's going to be some sort of food element. And, Panera makes great sandwiches, relatively inexpensive, pretty fast. And so we gave that a shot. We tried it. It did very well. It was very successful in its first couple of weeks. And so now we're making a significant investment in industrial kitchen equipment to turn sandwiches around in seconds instead of minutes. And so Budz has just become so much more than the podcast or a store, that we want to share with you where we are and where we're going and allow you to be a part of it and ask questions as we grow.
That's a lot. There's a lot to
It
unpack
is a
there. But
lot.
hey, before we do go down that path, because I want to hear about the cafe, I want to hear. uh, I got more questions. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But before we go down that path, you said just 30 days, or maybe this was off camera, just 30 days after bankruptcy, you started building a business basically from scratch. And to me, what is equally as impressive as actually executing and doing it and putting the pieces together from that position that you were in is how did you actually mentally, personally pick yourself back up to get to a place where you could think clearly and say, okay, this is what's got to be done. This is what's got to be done, and not let that setback prevent you from getting back up and getting back in the ring. Because I think that's something that a lot of people have experienced or going through, but they just have their own version of it. Sometimes I like to equate it to a rodeo. It's like, hey, everybody's got their own rodeo that they're trying to catch and get through. So, can you break that down for us real quick?
Yeah, without getting too emotional, Great
Take your
question.
time.
My mother and my significant other is the only way to answer it. Uh, they wouldn't let me give up and go work for somebody else. Um, they knew what community the podcast had built. Um, they knew I was a merchant, as a retailer, and that if anybody could do something different, it would be me. And that kind of belief and faith is unreal. Uh, because I didn't feel it. I didn't personally, I didn't have the mental strength, coming from, excuse me, uh, being fairly young and fairly successful at a young age. You just feel so strong. You feel so brilliant. To go through bankruptcy after years of success, it's humbling. It it shows you who you are. Um, but their belief in me re-energized me quick, and they helped me remember the qualities that got me to where I was before will be the same ones that get me there again. Um, the difference is when you start at the bottom, you have nothing to lose. So you take bets that maybe you wouldn't take when you're in preservation mode. And I'll give you an example. Um, I had so much belief in what I was doing that out of bankruptcy, just about having 100 grand in the bank, I went to a vendor and I made them a deal that was worth more than I had in my checking account. But I knew I would have the money by the time they could deliver. I needed big amounts of product at the lowest possible price. And I was willing to bet it all for market share because this is so competitive that I knew I winning in year 1 and 2 wasn't going to be enough. We needed market share so we could win in year 5. And I bet it all. And the vendor thought we were nuts. Everyone on my side thought we were pretty nuts. But I had nothing to lose. Like, if at that point I'm at zero, I just did this in 6 months. I'll do it again. I'll carry it over. So the mindset, had this happened, had I been in this industry before bankruptcy, I wouldn't have made that bet. There's no way. I know me. I wouldn't have
Mhm.
made that bet. You're talking about a product that expires. It's a living product. Would not have made that bet. I made that bet, and it doubled our business. It doubled our acquisition. It doubled our bottom line. And it turned us from a dispensary to a destination. Um, so, how did I recover from bankruptcy and maintain a mindset? My family and my significant other. There is no way to bounce back from something like that without help. Period.
Yeah. I think that, and just, I mean, knowing you for how long I've known you, I think that has just carried you through and through different business growth opportunities, challenges, even just personal life things that you and I have chatted about in the past, different Budz Care Foundation, like every single one of these things that you do and put your mind to wanting to go after. I see a lot of that in you deployed in every single one of these ventures. Even the cafe, the bistro. Um, I just think that is so true and is something that people could take away for all aspects of their life, leading into support, into people that support them, friends, family, having faith in themselves, knowing when to double down on what's gotten them through difficult times before. Doesn't sound like the highs last, the lows don't last either, but you just got to keep at it is what I'm getting from you and from what you're kind of getting at. It's just having to continue to just push through and double down on what you know you can do and what you're capable of. And you just got to saddle up when the proverbial, poop hits the fan.
Well, grit, discipline will get you very far. Um, I mean, you got to take a lot of beat downs to get to where you want to go. But mindset is so important to me. I mean, I just invested $10,000 into executive leadership for my management team because I feel like it's really important that they go from bud tenders to leaders to executives. And there's a lot of growth at Buds right now. And I want to make sure that we're investing in our people, but they're investing in themselves. And mindset is all of that. I mean, it's how I went from bankruptcy to Buds, and it's how they're going to go from you know whatever circumstances they're struggling with to surpassing those. So we invest in mindset. We we think that's the most critical part of all of this. And you know, just again, the support side, I could only get Buds so far by myself. I needed a great team. I could have gotten Buds probably to $1 million had I just done it solo by myself. It was an extremely phenomenal team that took this to a multi-million-dollar business. And then going back to your point about the cafe and what that how that's just kind of part of our ecosystem now. Um, I did nothing. I came up with the idea, I executed, but the management team built it. They ordered it. They did the R&D. They decided what drinks people wanted. They came up with the pricing. So I set the vision, the tone, and some structure, but they built it. And I think that's why it's so successful because they have ownership over it. The success of it was, was kind of based on them. And so everybody has a lot of ownership in what they do here at Buds.
Yeah, and on that thought too, just looking back on it, I would say a little bit less on the mindset front, but what would you say have been the biggest principles that have guided success for you and the team at Buds over the last several years?
Discipline, value, community. That's it. I could take it down to those three. So discipline, you got to get up early. You got to work hard. You got to push through. It's not going to be easy. You're going to get attacked. Um, Discipline over your mind. How do you react to things? What's your composure in tense situations? Value. I I don't necessarily love being called the cheapest, even though we are. I'm fine with it. I like to think we're the best value, period.
Hmm.
Like I prefer they're the Costco of cannabis. I'm fine with that one because the more you purchase, the better the discount, but you're already getting the best discount you possibly can get if you just buy one. So I am about value. My first business was a drive-in movie theater. We took ticket prices from per person to $15 a car. Um, Value, get people in the door. The more people you get in the door, the more relationships you can make. The more relationships you can make, the more people you'll be introduced to, and it grows. So you've got to have the best value because if you have the best value, nobody's going to go anywhere else. Like it's default. Oh, value, Buds. People drive hours for value. That's why our business in such a small town is so big because our value is you will drive hours for how if you are a volume purchaser. Um, Community. It really started with the podcast. People would ask questions, people would teach me things. There was a lot of support. And when I got into my own business, a lot of people helped me. A lot of people were, I mean, it was incredible the amount of guidance I got and uh, pitfalls to avoid. Um, your customer base is your brand ambassadors. And if you don't treat them like brand ambassadors, you don't really have a business because they're going to go somewhere else where they feel valued and people want to participate. They want to be a part of something, especially in a small town like where we are, and really in Maine. It's everything's a small community at the end of the day. Um, they like to know that their money stays in the community. It's not being extracted by big corporate America.
Hmm.
They like to know, like the Budz Cares Foundation. They like to know that profits aren't just making me rich, they're enriching the community. And all of these things add up to the core value of community first. My staff has a budget to solve customer complaints or issues or challenges. Um, you know, we want to do the best we can by everybody. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to please everybody, and we certainly don't. And there's certainly people that don't love buds, and that's fine. We have a strict standard. Just like we hold ourselves to discipline and respect, we hold our community to that. Like if you're going to be a part of Buds and you're going to be a part of this ecosystem, you need to be respectful. And that includes being respectful to the staff. So a number of times, we will dismiss people from the community to not come back to Buds because of their treatment to the staff that serves them. To me, no one is, the staff are the kings. I work for them, and the community gets the benefit of their hard work. And so I have zero tolerance policy for disrespect of the staff. But that doesn't mean that 90 days later we run into each other at the grocery store. You say, hey, I was a jerk to your bud tender. You were. I'm really sorry. I'd like to apologize to them. Let's do it. And it's all about forgiveness. There's obviously lines that you can't move past, but that doesn't mean that you can't forgive. And that's forgiveness, I think, is a huge part of community.
Yeah, and there's an underlying theme here. I'm gonna dub it as kindness. And what's interesting is that you've said you and I have talked about this before, and I'm pretty sure you've told me you didn't become kind because you became successful. You became successful because you were kind.
$100%.
Can you break that down? Because I think a lot of people get that misconstrued sometimes, but break it down. What does that mean? How does that actually live in reality? And how is that played out in real world examples in your day to day?
I was born that way. I mean, my dad's parents were spiritual leaders. My mom's parents were very active in my grandparents' church. My mom's mom was the definition of kindness. She was the definition of love. My dad is the definition of the nice guy finishes first. There was times throughout my life where I was like, man, he's getting taken advantage of. He's just too nice. But then I saw the way that he retired with dignity. He sleeps well at night. He treats everybody with respect. He opens the door for everybody. Um, I learned very young that being kind gets you far. Doesn't mean I don't get grumpy and I don't get angry and I don't get grouchy and I'm human.
We all do.
Um, but I feel that it's so easy to be grouchy and to be cranky and to be mean and to take it out on people. It takes discipline and restraint and composure to be delightful when you're not in the mood. Um, I think kindness, when I worked at Bud's Emporium by myself, 5 days a week, 13-hour days, I I treated every customer that walked in like they were my lifeline to salvation.
Mhm.
Like I needed every dollar. I was making 10 cents a product sometimes. This my value pricing was such a huge risk. The whole industry told me I was stupid. They're making 300% markups. I'm making 10 cents. But here we are. We're having this conversation. So it worked. Um, I I think kindness was the reason people got behind me. It like, oh man, he's not just a buds dealer. He's part of us. He's one of us. Um, People come to me. I mean, the reason we started the Budz Cares Foundation is last year we fed over 100 families Thanksgiving turkeys. Um, Prices were high last year. Prices are higher this year. We're going to do even more turkeys. We're going to do the Budz Cares Foundation will allow us to make an even greater impact in the community. I There's a net positive to being kind always, in my opinion. Um, I've been a jerk. I've been nice, and I've never been disappointed with myself when I took the high road, ever.
Yeah. I think everybody has those moments, but I think we could all agree that that's always been the best route to take at the end of the day. And you said that that's helped Buds grow into what it is today, not just as a business, but as a community. And one thing I wanted to really dig into is how did, especially because of how competitive the buds industry is, how did you grow buds so quickly in in the circumstances that the industry puts you in and the restrictions that it places on you?
It's a great question. So, how do we do it quickly? There is no quick way to success. It felt quick. Um, but what I had to do in order to grow a business, you need time, money, knowledge. I had no money. I had a lot of knowledge, and I had whatever time was available given to us by the universe. So, that's limited. And it was about 6 months before Buds turned on, and there
Mhm.
was like we knew we had something here. I'm talking seeing 10 to 20 people a day prior to that. It was like one day we went from 20 people, the next day 120 people. Like it did happen overnight. Um, I don't really know how to explain all of it other than it was just consistent and it was just putting in the work day after day and letting time compound. Um, Word got out about the price and people started to take notice. And then it was funny, we got investigated by the state because our prices were deemed too low, that it wasn't possible. This was
Mhm.
because of that deal that I had mentioned earlier that was so big. And I get a call from the state. They're coming out to investigate me. They want all my product on the showroom floor. They want all the tags, all the inventory manifests over a conspiracy by other retailers.
Mhm.
And we complied. I was baffled. A, Another company had to sell it to us. So couldn't you just check the record? Like, I mean, this was a witch hunt. And so they come out here. Clearly, everything's legitimate. That blew up. That's when the community rallied. Was like, oh man, like they're his prices are so big, they seem illegal. That was the best marketing that could have ever happened to me.
Yeah, I
Uh,
bet.
and and then that just, I think we had a couple 100,000 views on the story I had posted about, being investigated by the state because our prices are too cheap. I'm a marketer. I can spin anything a little bit for fun. Um, but uh, again, going back to how great our community is, anytime we receive hate, it's met with fierce love. The community is, don't mess with the Buds, because there's a whole group of Buds internet warriors that call themselves the Buds Mafia that will tell you just, how sweet and how nice Buds really is. But I wanted to touch on one thing real quick, Mike. Going back to the kindness thing, it's a culture. It's not just me. And it's not just Buds, and it's not just the Buds Cares. The staff come to me and tell me, this family lost their brakes and they need to commute to an hour and a half for a hospital visit. Um, we'll replace the brakes. Like, and now, these are things that, like, the staff want to do. They
Mhm.
want to help people. And so the whole culture is built that way. And we had to do the Budz Cares Foundation because, personally, I could, it wasn't sustainable. There was no tax reason to do so. It was just me handing out money to people in need, which is important. But we needed a structure, and that's really where Budz Cares comes in, is just providing a structure to do all the same things, but with some organization.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So why don't you lay it out for everybody? What exactly is the Budz Cares Foundation? What does it do? Why is it here? Break it down for us.
Budz Cares Foundation is really something we wanted to do a while ago, and it's expensive to build a business. It's expensive to build a foundation. And we wanted to make sure we had the right team, that it was the right time. Um, we're very busy and we want to do it right. We want to execute it right. We want to impact people. And so we didn't want to take something on if we weren't prepared for it. We're prepared for it, and we've got a great team built around it. And thank you for being a part of that team. Um,
Thank you for having me on board.
we last year alone, we gave tens of thousands of dollars away, and we we feel like we should. Um, but as a buds industry company, there is no tax benefit. There's no tax deductions for a buds business to do
Mhm.
that. So I'm doing it personally, which is, there's no receipt. I'm just cutting a check to an individual that's in need of some help. And again, there's liability there as well, right? If I pay for somebody's brakes, those brakes are faulty. There's just, it opens me up to liability that's just undue. Um, and that's just one example. There's, help people with, heating in the winters, food scarcity, like with Thanksgiving turkeys. But really, we needed a mechanism that was fair, that wasn't just me writing checks or giving cash to people in the community. It was an organization that people can apply to for assistance. Um, I'm proud of every dollar I've ever given because, we're selective. It's not just about dispersing funds. It's about empowering individuals, like where I was 5 years ago out of bankruptcy. When I was bankrupt, a $10 overdraft fee was whether I ate off the McDonald's value menu that night or ate nothing. Now, I don't worry about overdraft, but I needed help. Like, you can't get out of that kind of rut on your own.
Mhm.
I don't believe it. And there's people who don't have a significant other or a mother to look out for them like I did. And so I feel like businesses in the community that have resources should be required to help fill that void because it's just providing a hand up so they can take care of themselves. Most people aren't asking for a handout. They're not asking for $1,000 to sit on the couch another month. They're asking for $500 so their pipes don't freeze, so they can get half a tank of oil till they get their next paycheck. That's the person I want to give money to. So they can get that, done. At $500, tanks half full, they get their next paycheck. Maybe they have $200 to put towards their car payment. Whatever the situation may be, that's to me fundamentally what the Budz Cares Foundation is all about, giving people a hand up to better their circumstances. I want to provide resources for people, leadership resources, more education than just money, because I think education is critical to all this. And as we grow, we'll be able to offer more programs, but we'll do our first fundraiser on Halloween of this year. And then our first community benefit will be the Thanksgiving turkeys.
That's amazing. And how could this may be premature, but how can people get involved with Budz Cares Foundation today if they wanted to?
Well, reach out to me or someone on the board. We're still waiting on our tax exempt status. It was just filed. No reason it won't get approved, but I just don't want to collect funds and then for some reason it doesn't get approved and then, return everyone's funds. So we'll wait until that's approved and then we'll open up a donate button on our website. Reach out to me and you can make donations however you would like. There's going to be opportunities for volunteers to help out in the community. I know we're going to need contractors. I know we're going to need mechanics. We're going to need people that can just help solve everyday issues for the community that could help us at a reduced rate, and we pay some sort of labor rate. Some sort of donation of your time, and we can record that. A lot of ways to get involved. Right now, we're focused primarily on the Katahdin region. In the next couple of months, we will expand that to when we talk next about our second Budz location in that community, and how Budz Cares will get involved there. But we're not quite ready to discuss that quite yet. And so, yeah, there's so many ways to get involved. Just reach out and we're happy to discuss. And I've had a couple veterans groups reach out already. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to work with those groups. And so if you are an organization in the Katahdin region serving seniors, veterans, adults with disabilities, because we're a nonprofit that's unrelated to the Budz business. We can support children, which is something that I haven't personally been able to do in years.
Very cool.
I love giving back to young families, but it can be seen as marketing to children in my industry, which is a big challenge. So yeah, it's nice to have an organization that can really impact everybody.
Yeah, I love that. That's super important. And so I want to wrap this up with a question that I think is appropriate after sort of being radio silent for the last 4 years or so. Um, when people look back on your career, family, friends, the community, fellow buds, over the next 20 to 30 years, is there anything in particular that you hope people remember or immediately think of when they see Budz or they see your name pop up?
Great question. When people think of Budz, I want them to think of value. When people think of Rye Russell, I want them to think of love. And that's really what drives me. I try to share love with my community, with my friends, with my family. And Budz is my engine to give back to the community by providing superior products at superior prices while using that revenue to fuel my mission of impacting people. Personally, my family knows this, my friends know this. Um, Personally, I have no interest in having children of my own. I know you have a beautiful daughter.
Mhm.
For me, I just get so much joy out of helping young families get ahead. That fuels me, it drives me, and I feel like I don't necessarily have the patience or the focus on a singular human life as I do that the impact I can make by thinking globally and how
Mhm.
can I impact my community. And so I guess like if I was to think of my legacy, it's just more of like, did I give more than I took? And if that's the case, I'm pretty happy. Yeah, the world owes me nothing. I am blessed. I am grateful. And, at this point in time, it's I tell my family we're playing with the universe's money now. Like we've recouped what we lost, and we're very disciplined now. Or I should say I am. Everybody else was very disciplined. I'm very disciplined now. And whatever we can give back, we should. Without sacrificing the engine and sustainability and growth in the future. But I think businesses have a moral obligation to help the communities that they're collecting cash from. It's
Mhm.
just, it, to me, it's fundamentals. And to some
Kindness.
people, yeah, to some people, it seems, that's anti-capitalism. Well, I guess maybe with my family, I'm, very, communistic, but I'm a capitalist. I believe in that, but I believe good capitalism gives back because the whole community should be rising. If you're right, I mean, CEOs 50 years ago made 30 times what their staff made. Now it's 300 times. To me, that just doesn't make sense. The gap, they are not 300 times more intelligent. I
Mhm.
personally am not 30 times more intelligent than my staff. So, I don't see a scenario where I would ever take a salary that high. My staff, they run the show. They are important, and they lead this. But yeah, so I appreciate the question. I just ultimately I want Buds to be the engine that drives value for the industry and sets the bar on price. We've price shocked the industry a couple times just up here in Medway. And for me personally, I just want to be remembered for the guy that loved his family and gave back unconditionally.
I got no problem with that. I think that's a great way to go about it and check that legacy box as far as what it is that you're going after. And I think everything that you broke down was great. Everything from the aspect of the responsibility that a business and a business owner should have in its community. How do you make sure that the people that you're serving are also being taken care of, not just in a transactional one-to-one, one-off way, but genuinely, how is everybody being taken care of, especially when you've been put in a position where you can do that without sacrificing, you put it in an interesting way, the engine. But doing so in a responsible way, we're making sure, yes, everybody is taken care of on your team, on your staff. But then when there is a surplus, hey, how do we make sure that the people that have been showing us love and support going back to day one, right out of bankruptcy, those first people that kept coming in and saying, hey, man, we appreciate you. We see what you're going through. We see that you're fighting for us. We see the value that you're giving, even when you're getting investigated by the state and the state gets surprised. We're going to rally behind you. I mean, they maybe had valuably priced buds maybe that's what was in it for them. But outside of that, they didn't really have much in it, much to gain from rallying behind you. So I think that's super honorable from your end to now say, okay, now that the tables have turned, it's time for me to give back in ways that maybe I couldn't even imagine, go bringing us back to day one. So, right, I want to wrap up.
Real quick, Mike, that brings
Yeah,
up a great point. Going back to the kindness, I think I've always been kind and I've always been generous, but I had to sacrifice those things coming out of bankruptcy. I knew that $100 donated was $100 not going into my business. And $100 going into my business, I could turn into 1,000. So I knew that one day I would be in a place where, let's say I couldn't give $100 a month right now. I would be able to give $1,000 a month in the future, and that will compound faster than the 100. So,
absolutely.
it's okay to put yourself first and to say, hey, I'm building something. I've got a vision. I got to be really selfish, but I'm being really selfish today because tomorrow I'm going to be in a better position to get back. And that's fully acceptable. I just wanted to put that note in there. But Mike, thank you so much for helping me introduce myself back to Budz Radio, for relaunching the podcast. We're going to do 3 or 4 episodes over the next couple of months, talk more kind of like a founder series about Budz and the industry at whole. We'll have some interviews with some other industry guests. So stay tuned to Budz Radio. Of course, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, but connect with us, budsradio.com, stillweedbudsradio.com, budsemporium.com. You know where to find us. Thank you so much.